In just a couple of weeks, I'm going to be turning 41 and entering a 6th house Profection year in Aries with Mars as my Time Lord. I am also going to be entering a personal numerology 5 year. So I'm going to explain to you what I think this might mean for me and how I am preparing to head into this next year with all of the mystery and magic that is likely to bring. If your background is less numerology and more tarot and astrology, you probably think of 5s as being chaotic, spaces of change, of grief, of challenge, of conflict, and Mars also a planet of conflict and of aggression. So this is an interesting energy to be stepping into, but that's not what I'm trying to hold on to heading into this year. Numerology has a far more neutral interpretation of what a 5-year means, and I really want to work with Mars in a way that is collaborative and embodied and that takes me on steps towards whatever it is, and that is my goal for this year. Mars is an incredible ally in achieving goals, in working towards success. And so that's something that I really want to focus on this year as I connect with Mars in a new and deeper and more conscious way in my 5 numerology. So let's talk about what annual perfections are in astrology. I'm going to share an annual perfections wheel on screen now, so you can see that this is split into 12 slices, and each piece of this wheel has a different year in it. So if you go around the wheel and find the age that you are now, you will see which house is your perfection year. So for me, becoming 41 puts me in a 6th house perfection year. For me, when I look at my chart and overlay this, my 6th house is in Aries, which is ruled by Mars. And so my 6th house perfection year is an Aries Mars year. The 6th house includes themes of like our daily routines, our devotional practices, the ways in which we show up in service, in our work, in our day-to-day mundane tasks, and in our health and our bodies. And Mars and Aries talk about themes of our drive, our energy, our ambition, how we hold our boundaries, our decisiveness, and our survival instinct. And on top of that astrological piece, I'm entering a personal year 5 in numerology. So you find out which year you're in numerology by adding together your birthday and then the year that it is whenever you're doing this. So for me, my birthday is the 19th of March, and the year that we're headed into is 2026. So that would be adding together 193 for March, and then 2026 for the year. And when I add them all together, and then if there's 2 numbers, you add those together and keep on going until you've just got one single number. So for me, that is a 5 this year. In numerology, 5 years are about movement, about change, about adapting, about building momentum. After your 4 year of building foundations, the 5 year is like the pivot and move forwards kind of energy. So if we layer all of that together, we have Mars, who is about being driven and having boundaries, the 6th house about like daily devotion and service, and the 5 year in numerology about change and momentum. It just feels a little bit less chaotic, doesn't it, when you layer it all up like that? Feels like there is real work to be done here, and something really special could be birthed out of this energy of this year that I'm headed into. And if we look a little bit deeper, looking at my solar return chart for this year, I actually have quite a lot of energy in Aries as well. We've got Chiron there, Venus and the moon are both in Aries, Saturn and Neptune, of course, they've just had their conjunction in Aries, and they will both be in Aries on my birthday. So there is a lot of Aries energy just collectively in at this time, and that is going to be the imprint of my solar return chart. You can calculate your own solar return chart using whatever astrology software you're using to create your chart. There's usually a solar return option, and it's basically the chart for your birthday. It might not be on the exact same date as your birthday, because it's about the degree at which your sun is at. So for me, that is the date of my birthday. It's actually very close to the hour of my birthday as well. It has the same rising sign as my birth chart, but it isn't always. It can move around a little bit. So that's an interesting one to look up if you are thinking about your year ahead and what energy that's going to have. The imprint of your solar return is likely to give you some really good information about that. There's this real sense that after this Pisces 5th house year, creativity and expression, but also my full year in numerology about building foundations. Now this year I'm being asked to really use the skills that have been refined in building those foundations, the lessons that I learned over the last year, and put them into practice. I feel like some of it has been about refining my intentions for the last year, and so refining into what it is that I really want, and then using all of this drive and energy and forward momentum to really pursue my goals in a much more I want to say aggressive. I mean, that is the martial word for it, isn't it? In a more aggressive way, to be more success oriented. It has felt very much like this year has been much more gentle and cyclical, whereas I think next year there'll be a lot more forward momentum. And it's not just me, it's not just my chart and the timing that's happening for me. I think in the collective there's a lot of energy in the next year towards change and movement and potential to take us into new and interesting places. So I'm really excited to use this martial energy to navigate that in a really deeply embodied and, as far as possible, clear and disciplined way. I feel like martial energy is something that, particularly as women, it's quite hard to relate to embody, because particularly as young girls we were probably told not to and even as women we're often told not to be too ambitious, not to be too threatening, not to be too aggressive. It makes people nervous around us. It can cause significant damage to us, to our reputation, to the way that people receive us, to the way that people encourage or support us. And so finding ways to reconnect with that martial energy, when I have in very conscious and thought through ways, I have tried to avoid martial energy, even though Mars is one of my chart rulers. I'm a Scorpio rising. It's time to welcome Mars into my life and to collaborate with him in a way that is really supportive and nurturing, nourishing. These are not martial words, but I feel like there is potential for that. My Mars is in Taurus in my natal chart as well, so recognizing that I do have quite a steady, stable, nourishing, embodied Mars in my own chart, and he is the one that I am looking to guide me through this year. The Mars that is within me, and that already speaks through me, even though I have not really been embodying his energy. Just making more space for that, opening more ways for that to be channeled through me. So some of the things that I intend to do in the next year, I have created a list of goals and things that I would really like to focus on as Mars becomes my Time Lord, and so preparing some of those intentions, so that I can incorporate them into a ritual to welcome Mars as my Time Lord for the year. One of those things is to exercise more. This has not been a priority for me this year. I feel like in many ways sleep has been more important with a small baby. But as all of my children are sleeping a bit more, trying to find ways to incorporate exercise into my life in a way that is sustainable and also has those kind of martial qualities. I want to lift heavy things and run fast and find ways to incorporate that into my life. I'm not entirely sure what that is going to look like yet. I've only just started looking at my next year and what I think that will look like. But that is definitely something that I want to move into a bit more. And throughout the year, I plan to give you some updates on what this looks like and how Mars is supporting me as I move through this year. Another thing I want to do is have like regular moments where I can think about my boundaries. I like the idea of this being like a little morning ritual to set an intention for the day, or maybe even a weekly ritual to spend a moment thinking about where I want my energy to go. But being really aware of the ways in which energy is dissipating and leaking in my life, the ways in which my boundaries are not strong, is something that I intend to be much more aware of. I know that with Mars energy, if it is not channeled into something, then it can affect all kinds of things. And so I really want to create some clarity around what it is that I want Mars to support me with each day, each week, each season of this year, so that we can really collaborate together and it will feel like a supportive energy rather than a chaotic energy. I think that's something that feels really important, particularly with my Taurus Mars, but I think this could be really useful for anyone who is working with Mars in any capacity through transits or through a Mars year. Like to recognize where your energy is leaking, dissipating, chaotically going in all of the directions, and to create some boundaries around that, create some direction, some focus for that martial energy. I also want to be more intentional about how I communicate my boundaries, at being very clear about what it is that I want with the people around me, confident to ask for help when I need it, and much more clear in what it is that I need. And I think a lot of this is going to come from myself. I think I'm often not very clear with myself what it is that I need. I can say that I'm overwhelmed, but it's harder to say I need someone to load the dishwasher for me right now. I can say that my house is a mess, but actually like supporting my children to tidy up their own toys can feel really overwhelming and difficult. Or asking my husband to tidy up, but in a more specific way. Like what exactly do I want to achieve? And what help do I need to get there? Finding that clarity and the words to communicate that with other people, that is definitely on my list of goals as well. And then with this 5 energy, so my 4 year, if that was about building foundations, building structure, then my 5 year is about moving within that structure and finding ways for it to be adaptable and flexible as I change and grow. And I can see this happening already. Like there are changes that are happening in my life around deciding to homeschool one of my children. Will be less than a month into that on my birthday, and figuring out how to recreate our routines when we don't need to do school runs anymore, so it will create this freedom of structure. And also I see my husband like leaning into that a bit more, thinking like, how can we travel more? How can we find ways to have more adventures with these children? Things become more accessible as our children grow, as my children become more independent and are able to to walk more and carry more and are able to understand more, then the possibilities for things that we can do open up a bit more. And so there's like a freedom in entering a year of change and flexibility and momentum that I'm really excited to step into. And there's always layers to these things, aren't there? Another thing that I am aware of is that when we entered 2026, I did a tarot spread for the year. And that tarot spread had a lot of information about taking each step as it comes, about spending time integrating each section of this year and moving cyclically. But the completion of the year, I pulled 2 cards for that, and they were the Magician and the Queen of Wands. And these 2 cards speak of stepping into my own authentic selfhood and having mastery over my tools, of being the queen of my own fire and being able to create whatever it is that I need using the tools that I have. And these are cards that I'm holding close when I think about what I want to achieve this year. When I think about who I want to be, I want to be that Queen of Wands, that magician energy. I want to come to the end of this year with direction and purpose and mastery. And so thinking about how to move in that direction. And there's this tendency when we do like a year ahead spread that we want to know how we're going to get there. Like, what are all the steps? What does that look like? How can I embody it straight away as we enter the year? But the cards were clear. There isn't a step by step. This is something that is something that will unfold as I move through it. So I am really looking forward to seeing what that journey looks like, to sharing it with you, and to finding out what it looks like to really step into my Queen of Wands energy in a completely new level, to really have a new level of mastery over my tools, over the work that I do and the business that I'm creating and the way that it is sustaining me. So I'm really looking forward to this year. I do think it's going to be truly magical. So if you're moving through one of these transitions, if you're between years, if you're looking at your annual profections, at your numerology years, what year are you in and what are you moving into? How do you expect this to show up for you? What has happened over the past year? I'd love it if you would share your stories in the comments. I think that would be really helpful, not just for me, but for everyone to see the stories of what has happened for different people at different phases, because we all visit all of them at some point or another. If you would like to continue to follow my journey, I hope to give you updates throughout the year on what is happening and how this is playing out, which of my goals have been really supportive and which ones have shifted and changed along the way, and how has Mars been with me as I have navigated this year.